It started like a breeze, a thought that drifted through his mind when he was alone. Daniel would sometimes sit on the edge of his bed after work, still wearing his uniform, and stare at the wall. The room was silent, but inside his mind, something stirred. He began to wonder. He didn't say it out loud. He didn't even write it down, but quietly, deep in his heart, he asked himself, what if I could be more? It wasn't about being rich or famous. It wasn't even about getting a better job. It was about waking up and feeling alive, about having a reason to smile, about doing something that made his heart race, not out of fear, but excitement. He started noticing things. He noticed how his coworker Brian talked about his side project with a spark in his eyes. He noticed how the delivery guy was always reading self-improvement books during lunch breaks. He noticed the elderly woman who painted outside her house every morning, completely immersed in joy. They had something, he thought, a fire, a passion, a reason. But Daniel, he only had questions. He kept them inside, afraid of being laughed at. After all, he was just Daniel. Just a grocery store clerk. Who would take him seriously? Still, the whisper kept coming. Sometimes while he was watching TV. Sometimes when he lay awake at night. It would ask him simple things. Why not you? What are you waiting for? What if you just tried? He began to imagine small changes. Maybe he could take an online course. Maybe he could write a journal. Maybe he could start waking up earlier and read something motivational. Nothing big, just something. It wasn't courage yet. It wasn't confidence, but it was the beginning, a seed. And once a seed is planted, it only needs time, water, and a little light to grow. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. Daniel was walking home from work. Same path, same sidewalk, same city noise in the background. But this time, something felt different. As he passed the playground, he saw a young boy learning to ride a bicycle. The child kept falling, over and over. But every time he got back up, brushed the dirt off his knees and tried again. Daniel stopped to watch. The boy's mother clapped and cheered every time he made progress, even if it was just a few feet. That's it? You're doing it, she shouted with pride. And then, it clicked. Daniel felt a lump in his throat as he realized he couldn't remember the last time someone had cheered for him. Not because people were unkind, but because he hadn't tried anything worth cheering for in years. That night, he didn't turn on the TV. He sat at the table, took out a notebook he hadn't touched in years, and wrote one sentence, I want to change my life. And then he added, even if no one notices. And because the truth was, he didn't need applause. He didn't need a crowd. What he needed was permission. And he finally realized that only he could give it. He stayed up late, reading articles on growth, watching motivational videos, and making a list of small things he could try. Nothing extreme. No overnight success plans. Just a few new habits to wake up the man sleeping inside him. That night marked the beginning, not of change itself, but of the belief that change was possible. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a mix of energy and fear. He had decided he would start his day differently. Instead of rolling out of bed half awake, he set his alarm an hour earlier. He got up, drank a glass of water, and sat by the window with a notebook. The page was blank, but his mind was full. He wanted to write about his dreams, his doubts, his goals, but fear crept in like a shadow. What if this was pointless? What if he failed? What if everyone thought he was ridiculous for even trying? And he stared at the paper for 10 minutes. And then, with shaking hands, he wrote, I am afraid, but I'm doing it anyway. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. It was honest. It was real. Facing the fear didn't mean it disappeared. It meant looking it in the eye and saying, you don't get to decide who I become. The fear came in waves. When he tried to go to the gym for the first time in years, he almost turned back at the door. When he signed up for a free online course, he felt ridiculous typing a beginner in the profile section. When he shared a journal entry in an online forum, his hands trembled before clicking a post. But every time he faced his fear, something amazing happened. It got smaller. Not gone, not erased. But smaller, more manageable, less powerful. Daniel began to understand that fear wasn't the enemy, stagnation was. And as long as he kept moving, fear would just have to keep up. Each day became a quiet rebellion, a silent refusal to live small, a declaration that he was done being a background character in his own life. Because deep down, Daniel knew the truth. Extraordinary people aren't born with magic. They just choose not to let fear write their story. Yeah. Benjamin was not born into wealth, power, or privilege. He grew up in a small town where opportunities were few and expectations were even fewer. His father was a mechanic, and his mother worked at a local diner. Life was simple, sometimes hard, and filled with silent struggles. From a young age, Benjamin was curious about the world beyond his little town. He would read books about explorers, inventors, leaders, people who changed the course of history. But in the quiet of his mind, he always thought, that's not me. I'm just a regular guy from nowhere. It wasn't until he faced his first true setback that he realized the strength he had inside. At age 21, Benjamin applied to a prestigious art school in the city. Art had always been his passion. He had spent years sketching, painting, and creating, often using scraps of old paper or leftover paints from the school art class. He poured his heart into his application and sent in his best work. A month later, a rejection letter arrived. The words were cold and formal. We regret to inform you, Benjamin was crushed. For weeks, he didn't touch a pencil or brush. He avoided friends, ignored calls, and let self-doubt grow like a weed in his heart. One evening, while walking past a small park, he saw a man playing violin under the moonlight. The music was hauntingly beautiful. When the man finished, Benjamin approached him and asked why he played alone. The man smiled and said, I was once told I'd never be good enough to perform on stage. So I made the world my stage. I play because I love it, not because someone approves. That moment changed everything for Benjamin. He went home, picked up his sketchbook, and made a promise to himself. I will create not for praise, but for passion, and I will rise every time I fall. That promise became the root of his resilient mindset. Benjamin started drawing every day again. He posted his art online, not caring how many people liked or commented. Slowly, people began to notice. A local gallery invited him to showcase his work. Then a magazine featured one of his pieces. It wasn't overnight success, but it was real. But life, as it always does, tested him again. His father fell ill. Medical bills piled up. Benjamin had to take up a job at a hardware store to support his family. The hours were long and the pay was small, but he kept drawing every night, even if only for 30 minutes before bed. There were nights he wanted to quit. Times when exhaustion whispered, what's the point? But he remembered the man in the park. He remembered the sound of that violin, played for no one but the stars. He told himself again and again, I will not stop because of circumstances. I will grow because of them. That is the essence of resilience. It's not about being unaffected by pain. It's about pushing through despite the pain. One rainy day, while at work, a customer noticed his sketch pad lying open behind the counter. The man was an art dealer visiting town. He flipped through a few pages, then asked, did you draw these? Benjamin nodded. The man handed him a business card and said, call me. I want to talk about your work. That call led to a life-changing opportunity. Benjamin's art was soon showcased in international exhibitions. He moved his family to a better home. His father got the treatment he needed. His mother no longer had to work double shifts. But more importantly, Benjamin stayed grounded. He never forgot the nights of rejection, the days of silence, the weight of self-doubt. He embraced every failure as a lesson, every challenge as a test of his spirit. He often told young artists who looked up to him, your circumstances don't define you. Your response to them does. Build a mindset that doesn't break when life gets hard. Build a spirit that rises even when the world wants you to fall. His story became a living example that resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you grow in. It's something you grow, one hardship at a time. Dathan was the kind of man everyone liked. Humble kind, always smiling. He had a stable job in a small accounting firm. His daily routine was predictable. Wake up, drink coffee, go to work, come home, watch TV, sleep, and repeat. It wasn't a bad life. In fact, many would say it was a good life. But something inside Nathan began to whisper to him every night. A quiet voice that said, you're meant for more. He tried to ignore it. After all, comfort is warm. It wraps itself around you like a soft blanket, making it hard to step away. Yet that voice kept growing louder. One day his friend Mark visited him. Mark had recently returned from a 2-year journey working in different countries and learning new skills. He looked vibrant, energized, full of stories. Nathan listened as Mark shared his adventures, the people he met, the obstacles he faced, the growth he experienced. Something sparked in Nathan that night. For the first time in years, he asked himself, what am I really doing with my life? The next morning, Nathan sat in front of his bathroom mirror and stared at his reflection. He asked, am I really living or just existing? That question haunted him. Over the next few weeks, he began to challenge his habits. Instead of watching TV for hours, he started reading about entrepreneurship and personal development. He joined a public speaking club, even though it terrified him. He enrolled in weekend courses on digital marketing. At work, he offered to take on projects outside his job role. He began leading meetings, organizing events, and solving problems that weren't technically his responsibility. His manager noticed. Nathan, you've changed, she said one afternoon. You're not just doing your job, you're growing into a leader. Nathan smiled. He was scared every day, unsure of what he was doing, but he knew he was finally alive. One evening, his boss called him into her office. We're opening a new branch in another city, she said. It's a big leap, but I want you to lead it. Nathan's heart pounded. Comfort begged him to say no. Growth whispered, say yes, and he did. Moving to a new city was hard. He didn't know anyone. He had to build a team from scratch. He worked longer hours, dealt with failures, and faced the pressure of leadership. But every difficulty became a lesson. Every mistake became a teacher. 2 years later, the new branch was the most successful in the company. Nathan was no longer just an employee, he was a visionary. He often told young professionals, a comfort is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. If you want to become extraordinary, you must choose growth over comfort. Again and again. Derek is the high school, he was top of his class. In college, he graduated with honors. His goal was clear, to start a tech company that would change the world. At 25, he launched his first app, a tool that helped people manage daily tasks. He poured all his savings into it, worked night and day, and believed it would become the next big thing. It failed. The app barely reached a few hundred downloads. People said it was too complicated, not user-friendly. Investors backed out. His team left. Derek was left alone with a broken dream and mounting debt. For a month, he didn't speak to anyone. He deleted social media. He questioned everything. Was I wrong about myself? Am I just not good enough? Then one morning, he read a quote by Thomas Edison. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That hit him hard. He realized failure wasn't the end. It was just feedback. So he studied the reasons his app failed. He reached out to users for honest reviews. He read books on user design and product testing. He attended workshops and tech meetups, and then he tried again. This time, he built a smaller, simpler app, focused only on one problem, reminding people to drink water during the day. He called it a hydropal. People loved it. The app went viral. Within 3 months, it had over 1 million downloads. Health blogs wrote about it. Fitness trainers recommended it. Investors started calling him. Derek didn't become extraordinary because he succeeded. He became extraordinary because he failed forward. He later spoke at conferences, telling crowds, your failures are not your enemy. They are your greatest instructors. Every failure is a step closer to success if you let it teach you. Lucas had everything a young man could dream of. Money, recognition, and status. He was a successful architect, designing buildings for celebrities and international corporations. He lived in a high-rise apartment, drove a luxury car, and traveled the world. But with success came ego. He stopped listening to others. He dismissed feedback. He believed he was always right. Slowly, people around him began to distance themselves. Team members quit. Clients found him difficult. His once rising star began to dim. One day, he met an old college professor who invited him to speak at a university event. After Lucas gave his talk, the professor pulled him aside and said gently, his success is like climbing a mountain. The higher you go, the more wind hits your face. But if you forget to bow your head, the wind will knock you down. Lucas didn't understand at first, but weeks later, he received a message from a young intern he once dismissed. You were my hero, it read. But when I met you, you made me feel small. That broke him. Lucas sat in silence, thinking about who he had become. He realized he had traded humility for pride, gratitude for arrogance. He reached out to the intern and apologized sincerely. He called former teammates to thank them. He returned to old clients and asked for honest feedback. He started mentoring young architects and even volunteered his skills for non-profit housing projects. Slowly, people began to trust him again, not just as an architect, but as a human being. His work improved, his spirit lightened, and more importantly, he felt peace again. Yeah. He would later say, no matter how high you rise, stay grounded. Be thankful. Be humble. That's what keeps you truly extraordinary. Cameron had always been a dreamer. From a young age, he would talk about building something that would outlive him, something that would make a real difference in the world. But for years, he found himself stuck in the same place, surrounded by people who didn't share his vision. His friends were good people, but they didn't understand his hunger for greatness. They would often say, just be happy with what you've got, or why work so hard when you can take it easy? Slowly, without realizing it, Cameron began to shrink his dreams to fit their expectations. One evening, he attended a local networking event out of pure boredom. There, he met a man named Joshua, who had started his own renewable energy company. Joshua spoke with such passion and energy that Cameron felt alive just listening to him. They talked for hours about ideas, challenges, and visioned. For the first time in years, Cameron felt understood. Joshua introduced him to a small circle of people who were driven, focused, and positive. Every time they met, the energy was electric. Instead of tearing each other down, they lifted each other up. Instead of laughing at big dreams, they fueled them. Cameron realized that who you surround yourself with is just as important as what you do. He slowly distanced himself from the voices that doubted him and leaned into those that inspired him. His thinking changed. His actions followed. Within a year, he launched a small, eco-friendly packaging company that started gaining traction. He often said, if you want to fly high, stop hanging out with people who are afraid of heights. The right people will remind you who you are and push you to become even more. Ever since childhood, Leo had been told to stay realistic. When he drew colorful sketches of inventions, his teachers would smile and say, that's nice, but maybe you should focus on something practical. When he told his parents he wanted to be a filmmaker, they responded with concern, suggesting he study business instead. So he did what was expected. He went to college, earned a degree in finance, and got a job at a corporate firm. The money was good. The office was clean. But every time Leo sat at his desk staring at spreadsheets, he felt a part of himself fading. He began to dread Monday mornings. His weekends were filled with emptiness. And though everything looked good on the outside, he felt hollow inside. One day, he stumbled upon an old notebook from his teenage years. Inside were stories, movie ideas, and rough scripts. His heart ached with both nostalgia and regret. That night, Leo made a decision. He would no longer ignore the voice inside him, the one that kept whispering, you were meant for more. He started small. He took a filmmaking course online. He saved up and bought a used camera. On weekends, he made short videos and posted them online. At first, no one watched, but he kept going. Months passed. One of his short films caught the attention of a local film festival. It didn't win, but it opened doors. People started noticing his work. Offers started coming in. He quit his corporate job and took the biggest leap of his life, pursuing filmmaking full-time. Leo faced challenges, of course. There were times he wanted to quit. But he remembered why he started, because deep down he believed he was meant for more. Years later, standing on stage at an international film awards ceremony, Leo looked into the crowd and said, the world told me to settle, but I refused. If there's a fire inside you, don't smother it, and feed it. You are not ordinary. You are meant for more. Would you like me to compile the full story into a single document for easy use in your video or voice content?